G'day everyone, back in for our normal Friday live show, obviously Thursday if you're in the US and Europe, but just thought I'd pop in and have our normal chat today. Now just let me put my watch on silent so we don't get annoyed with beeps. So say hi if you're popping in, guys, because I'd love you to all start chiming in. Let me know where you're from. We're going to have a good chat today, so it's going to be interesting. G'day Michael, good to see you here. You're in nice and early today. Wanted to show you a couple of things today. I've been really using this lens. Oh my God, I'm falling in love with this lens so much again lately. This beautiful 55 1.8 lens. Funny thing was, I did use it a lot when I first got it, and now just lately I've been using it a lot again, and I really have been falling in love with it again. I mean, how small is it? Like, it's ridiculous, like how tiny this lens is. I'm going to do a review on this because I just really have fallen in love with it again. I have to do another review talking about it. Let me just come over to here just to say hi as people are popping on. Let me just make this a bit smaller. Oh, where are we? So who have we got? We've got Michael's obviously here. Jeffrey, hi David. I attended the Sony sales event at a camera shop last weekend, and they raised some great points about the pros and cons for the Sony A7. Is it the A7R3, or I'm not sure what you meant there because you put AR73. Let us know what you mean in the comments, Jeffrey. Eli says, hey, Jeffrey also saying, g'day, mate. Chris is saying, hi, David, it's another Miller Lite day. Oh, I'm so hanging out now for warm weather again. It's quite cold today here. It's actually 13 degrees Celsius. It's pretty cold. That's why I'm drinking a coffee. I'm hanging out for when it's my summer again or spring and I can start drinking my Coronas with you guys again. So I'm jealous of you guys having a beer o'clock. You got to crack a stubby for me, guys. Mike's here. G'day, Mike. How you going? Ryan is here as well. Kevin's here. Jeffrey. One con was that some Canon lenses don't work properly on the converter because the lenses aren't made for mirrorless cameras. Oh, okay. I really love the autofocus. The autofocus is incredible with Canon lenses as long as you're not doing video in that. Derek's saying hi. Scott's saying hi, David. I got my 55. Oh, you're going to love it, Scott. This lens is nuts. Seriously, I absolutely adore this lens. I can stick it on a gimbal. It's the best gimbal lens I reckon I've got. I love the look of it. Everyone keeps asking me, that way. Everyone keeps asking me what lens I'm using when I show those gimbal shots that I've taken with Kiara, and I think they're so surprised when I tell them it's the 55. Great shooting wide open, locks focus, never lets me down, super quick, really, really light. I just adore it, and I just love the rendering that it gets from that lens. I actually did a shoot yesterday with Kiara. I'll just quickly show you this so you can have a look. I'm only showing the one at this stage, but you can see there that was shot with the 55. It's good too in a studio scenario, as long as the girl or whoever you're shooting is reasonably slim like Kiara is. Remember, the longer your focal length, the more you'd be able to, you need to get that compression on the face. So I'm just going to turn that down just a touch. So the compression with this is fantastic for someone who looks like Kiara and is reasonably quite slim. If you're dealing with someone that is a little bit fuller in their body shape, well, then you might want to go to the 85, because remember, the longer your lens is, the more it slims down the face and stuff. But basically, I adore using this in the studio. It's fantastic. I mean, my studio is quite big, but to be able to move around like I can here, and I can do sort of full body and then move forward and get head and shoulders and things like that, you know, is really good. And I really do love shooting with this in the studio, and I've got a few videos to post of that as well. And I also did that workshop recently with it too, that I'll be posting too, some from that as well. So you'll see that coming up reasonably soon as well. Let me just go back to questions. Or starting up anyway. So you're going to love that lens, Scott. It's really fantastic. Hi, David. Sunny and warm in Canada. Thanks so much. See, I'm the opposite to you guys. I'll be probably making you guys jealous when you're freezing cold, and now it's the opposite for me. Ultramate Climbing said, hi, David. Sunny. Oh, that's the one I just read. Yep. Sid's here as well. Daniel's also here. Dominic is here. Altrix saying hi. Ryan is saying howdy from Smoking Hot 107 South Dakota. Thanks, Ryan. That really makes me feel good. Lance said hi from Antigua in the Caribbean. Well, I'm sure you're nice and warm as well. Ryan said it was 108 in Vegas today. Hot, hot. A little early for here in the North Country. Dwayne said, hey, young man, hello. Bought the 85 1.4 GM. What a beast. Yeah, it's a beautiful lens. Also got the 16 to 35 GM. Lovely. Was thinking of sending it back for the 70 to 200. Oh, okay, that's interesting. What would you recommend for real estate if I do that? Well, if you're doing real estate, I wouldn't be shooting a 70 to 200. You really should be using something like the 16 to 35. Definitely, or something wider than that, you know, like the 14 mil or 12 mil. Richard said, hi. Kevin said, what's the best 35 you've used? It's definitely the Sony 35 1.4. And I'll show some comparisons about that shortly, because I do want to discuss that as well. But I love the Sony 35 1.4. Particularly for me, it's so good because of the aperture ring on it. I think it's in the back room. But remember, that's the difference between that lens and something like the Samyang. But having said that, now the Sigma may be also a really good option as well, because the Sigma would have the advantage of being a full proper focusing lens, because it's not fly-by-wire or fly-by-wire. So I can't wait to try some of the Sigmas and just have a look at how they are. So the Sigma could be a real good one, but I do love the Sony. I would like to try the Sigma one though. Mike said he likes a Samyang 1.4. Yep, that's a nice lens as well, Mike. Ryan said, hey, Dwayne, I use the 16 to 35 f4 all the time for real estate. It's fantastic. Yeah, I know, and that's why it's such a good lens. I've got the 16 to 35 f4 myself, so that's the one that I actually use as well. MN Photography said, hi, David. I'm Mark from Melbourne. G'day, mate. New subscriber and first time I've attended. Love hearing all your advice on lenses. Thanks so much for joining us. Dwayne said, Ryan, I was thinking I could try that since I can control lighting. Not sure what that meant. I was at the 16 to 35. Scott said, thanks, David. Very pleased with the 55 and the 35 2.8. I love the 35 2.8. I haven't got it on here, have I? No, I've only got this one with the Batis. I mean, I love the Batis. That was also used in the studio yesterday with Kiara. I shot that with the A9. Loved it. Beautiful, because I wanted to get a little bit closer and have that compression. And obviously the other part I used the 55. The 35.2.8 I use a lot when I'm dealing with video and stuff like that, because it's so light and it's really good to put on a gimbal or something like that. So I do use that lens a lot. Now Kerry, when she's shooting weddings, loves the 35 2.8. She puts that on her camera all the time and loves it. And I can tell you what, that 35 2.8 is really sharp. What else have we got? So I might leave it there and we'll come back to questions. Guys, just make sure you put at David Osler if you want my attention. No one's done that yet, but if you do want my attention, put at David Osler, because it does make it easy for me to find it and not miss your question, really. All right, so we're going to go through some stuff. So let me put in time in here. So 9:00. So let's go to the first story today. And I wanted to sort of talk to you about this now, because this lens, it's the first Sigma art lenses have just been are now shipping. So I think they're now saying that you can get this 85, the Sigma 85 and also the Sigma 50, I think are actually shipping. And if you look down here, and I'll put these all down below, and there's quite a few now video reviews up that you can have a look at, and I'll leave the link down below so you can get to all of these. I've looked at a few of them and it looks really nice. Now, I can tell you that I used this lens when I was shooting Nikon. I did have this exact lens, the 85 1.4, and I adored it. I thought it was unbelievably sharp, super sharp, and it really was fantastic to use, and I really like the way the Sigmas feel. And the other advantage too with this, and this is why it might be so really great for videographers, is the fact that it's not fly-by-wire focus. So you do have that traditional click stopping when you move your focus around. So you can get repetitive rack focusing, which is something you just can't get with fly-by-wire. And that's the interesting thing, because when you're dealing with these sort of Sony lenses, they're variable. So if you're trying to rack focus between two separate points, or even pull focus very quickly, it changes depending on how fast you move this focus ring. So that can be a real problem if you're dealing with manual focus. So if you do want manual focus, having the focusing system like what Sigma have is way better if you're shooting video. I mean, this would be like the ultimate lens if it had the aperture stepping ring like what my Sony lens has, the 35 1.4, because I really do love being able to smoothly transition your aperture so you don't get stepping. That's the problem. You'll get stepping if you haven't got that. So anyway, so that now is released. I'd really appreciate too, guys, if you could give me a thumbs up. It just makes more people pop on board. I've only got 9 there and we've got nearly 60 watching. So please give me a big thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. So anyway, now the 85's come out. Now I have tried to contact someone locally that is the local distributor of Sigma lenses. Now he's also, I think he's also the person responsible for Pro Photo, but he's overseas until the end of this month. So when he comes back, I'm hoping, because I have made good contact with him, I'm hoping that I can start to get all of these Sigma lenses to review with you guys. So I'm really hoping that in the coming weeks, I'm going to be able to review like this 85, the 105 and the 135 lens and give you a comparison about how they look. And you'll know because you see my work all the time. So I'd love to see how what you think about it. So I'm dying to get that. Because obviously it's no good me going out and purchasing all these. I mean, I may purchase one if I really love it after I've tested it, but I am going to see about doing that. So hopefully when this guy gets back at the end of this month, I can start doing that for you and really start to show you these shoots in real life scenarios instead of shooting brick walls, because as you know, I'm just not into shooting brick walls. You're going to see my reviews from a real world perspective of shooting what I love to shoot. So I certainly won't be shooting brick walls. So anyway, that's a really good thing, and I'm hoping that comes about. It's very hard in Australia to get suppliers. See, unlike the US where you can just get stuff sent from B&H and everywhere else, we haven't got that facility here. So hopefully this is a really good contact that I can make. Now that I've worked with Tamron doing the 28 to 75, this may have opened up some other doors for me, so I might now be able to get Sigma lenses as well. So I'm really hoping that's what happens, because I'm quite excited about using those lenses because, like I said to you, I've used them before and I really did like them. The build quality was outstanding, very, very sharp, and I'm hoping from the early reviews that I've seen, the focusing is way better than if it's using the MC11 adapter, like way better. It's in another league. So, you know, that's going to be a great thing. So stay tuned for that. There's 2 lenses in particular that I'm dying to try, which is the 105, the 105 f1.4, because I really want to try the lens down here, which is the, where are we, 105 1.4, and that's $1,600 US. And I also want to try the 135 f1.8. So they're the 2 lenses that I really would like to try. And I'm also interested in the macro as well. The 51.4 could be nice, but it is big. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, really at this stage, it would have to be fantastic to even get me away from this 55. I just adore that lens so much. Remember, I do like to travel light, but I would like to occasionally use a lens like the 105 or the 135 for portraits. Keep that in my bag and then just grab it out occasionally for a certain shoot, and that's why I'm really excited about trying that. Anyway, they are now available. The 85 is anyway, so it's now available and shipping. So if you did want to get one, you could order it now. The next story, what are we on? 1440. Oops. 1450. So the next story is the a7iii weather sealing. So you can read this article about it. They've done another test on the a7iii, and it looks like it's suffering from the same problems like the a7R RX100VI had, in the fact that it's the bottom part of the camera that is the weak link with the weather sealing on this camera. So you would have to be careful. It looks like the top part of the camera is pretty good. But the bottom part, apparently it's the hinge around here that's causing the issue. So what they're saying is that you have to be very, very careful about putting this into any water. So if it was raining, and you wouldn't want to put this down on the ground to get it wet, because the water will seep in. And that's what he talks about this. And he's basically saying, I won't read the whole thing, but he's basically saying that it is the weak link, that if you put it down on these wet surfaces, it can be a potential problem, particularly depending on how deep that water is. And he's just saying at the end there that he hopes that Sony will fix the issue in time for the a7S III. And just to remind you, he's talking about this image resourcing testing, and this was that test here that they did a while ago, which was pretty ridiculous. I mean, no one's going to put their camera through this sort of torture testing. I mean, you'd have to be crazy. That they did here, but you can see when they actually did the test between all of these cameras that the weakness did seem to be, if we go down, the weakness was in the door compartment. So you can see there that that's the area where Sony were having an issue, and obviously it's still an issue with this camera as well. So it looks like it's fine as long as you don't stand it in water. So just be careful if it is wet, that you don't stick your camera down on, if it's raining or whatever, you put your camera down to do something else. I would probably avoid that completely, looking at what they've showed here. Overall though, I think if you're looking at that water testing that was even done a while ago, the camera really was pretty outstanding considering the torture test that they put that through, because no one would ever treat their camera the way that they did. But it definitely obviously is an issue. Remember, I'll always tell you guys the truth. I'm not going to lie. It obviously is definitely an issue if you're putting the camera down on a wet surface. So I would be very careful about doing that. Just don't stick it on the floor if it looks at all like it's going to be wet. You can talk about that too in the comments, because I'd like to know. The next story is, where are we? 1730. I'm just doing this so I can put it in the timeline. So next story is the size comparison of these lenses, because I wanted to show you this. It's quite interesting actually, because looking at this, they're all pretty similar if you look at them. I don't know why they haven't got the lens cover on the Sony in the middle. That doesn't make sense to me when they've got the lens cover on both of the other two lenses. But looking at them, they all look like they're a pretty similar size. This is a 35. So clearly, I'm quite happy lugging around the 35 1.4. So I'd be just as happy lugging around the Samyang and also the Sigma 1.4. You can see the zoom ring right there. So that's the thing I think that makes that lens so beautiful for me personally to use in video, particularly, is that I love having that manual clickless. You can click on it and it will become clicky. You can turn it off and it becomes dead smooth, or you can put it on automatic so it will just work through your aperture control. It really is a great design, and I really do love it. And that's probably my favorite lens that I've got for Sony completely all around. But like I said, I've still got to test the 35, and I haven't. I've only tested the Samyang in the camera store, and I did take it outside and used it for a while, and it was lovely. It was really quite good. So I suppose the big difference between the three of them, if you were dealing with video alone, is that you've got the, like I said, the proper not fly-by-wire focusing on the Sigma. So that really would be fantastic with your manual focusing if you're dealing with video, if you don't want to use AF. But to be totally honest now, the cameras are so good now. The a7 III and the A9 and the a7R III is so good that you really don't need to use manual focusing much at all. I'm just tending to keep it on autofocus now. I very rarely ever go into manual focus. But if you did want to shoot that way, as a lot of videographers do, I think probably the Samyang is the way, the Sigma is the way to go due to its focusing ring, which is not that fly-by-wire, which videographers absolutely adore. And it does mean that you can, like I said, you can rack perfectly between two objects, and then that's consistent, unlike the Sony and the Samyang, which you can't do that because it's variable by speed, and that's the big difference between the two of them. So if you were dealing with videography alone, probably I would think the Sigma if you're dealing with focus. The other one, I suppose I still prefer the Sony because I love that aperture ring, which is clickless. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about that. But it's interesting, the size, the comparison for the 35s are pretty similar. I think you're probably going to find that the newer Sigma lenses eventually will start to be designed more for the Sony cameras. You're going to find that's going to happen eventually. But to be honest, I don't think it's a big deal anyway. It would be the same as if you had that MC11 adapter on there anyway, and I don't think I'd worry about it at all. Anyway, I just wanted to show you that because it's an interesting comparison between the 35 mils. Okay, so what are we on? 2050. Oops. So let's go to the next story. So next story is, there's quite a few tests now. I noticed Kai did a fairly good test of the RX100VI. And there's a few tests now that you can go out and look at to see how they are. It seems to be that, to be honest, it's a really nice camera. I'd almost be tempted to buy both. Now, that may sound stupid to you, but I would almost be tempted to buy both, and I may do that one day. I might buy that to take both, because look, it is tiny. I left it in the house. It's tiny, but you could easily carry two of these around in each pocket, because if you needed the zoom lens, you'd have that camera, and if you needed the 1.8 aperture, you could get the version 5, which is what I've got. I still think, to be totally honest with you, and I've looked at it quite in detail now, and I've used the 5 quite a lot now. I really wouldn't want to give the 5 up for the features that it had, and I still have another week that I could take it back. I'm definitely going to keep it though, and the reasons why, and I'll tell you why, and I think this is important for the way that I shoot. If you wanted the reach, and that is obviously going to be a fantastic thing with this camera, with the 6, clearly the 6 is fantastic if you want the reach. And you also want the stabilization, which obviously is going to be a little bit better. But I found, honestly, hand-holding the 5, I'm getting a really good result. But if you do want that zoom lens and you want the touch screen, clearly the 6 is the way to go. But for the way that I'm going to shoot, which is doing vlogging and indoor shoots. Now, I can tell you what, I shot my granddaughter's birthday party on, it was Wednesday night. And it was obviously indoors. We went all out to a restaurant, and I needed to use the 1.8 aperture. Now, I was shooting at 1.8, and to get a reasonable result, I had to put the ISO up to 1000 on that camera. Now, that's starting to push it on that camera. Now, I was shooting at 1.8. So clearly, if you had the version 6, you would be in trouble because the minimum aperture you've got is 2.8. So that's a massive difference in how much I'd have to push the ISO up to get that same feel in the look. The other thing too is I really do like the 1.8 aperture and that look that it gives, you know, throwing it out of focus. If you're dealing in low light scenarios, yes, if you zoom the lens up, you will get that compression, which gives you a similar look. But if you're dealing with something like I was, which is in low light, and you had to not raise the ISO so much, having the 1.8 aperture is a really big deal. So that to me again confirms it. I really do like to shoot a lot of the time wide open. The other thing is as well is that the ND filter, honestly, in that camera, I'm using that all the time, and that is incredible. I adore the way that ND filter works. Now, if you're shooting outdoors in sunlight, you're going to be potentially in trouble with the Mark VI, because you are going to have to raise the shutter speed so high to bring the exposure down that you're going to start getting that jerky look of you know, the look on your video. That is the only way you can get around that is to be shooting 2 times your frame rate. So you really do need the inbuilt ND, and it's even really important if you want to use a slow motion, which is, say, slow down a waterfall, fountain, do things like that during the day. You can really only do that with the version 5 because it has that built-in ND. Because the problem is if you're doing it with a version 6 and you're starting to slow down the waterfall, again, you're going to have to raise your shutter speed so high that you're going to get a jerky waterfall. It's not going to have that beautiful smooth look that it should. So I think for me personally, I really am happy with the version 5 that I've got. Like I said, it's the ND, it's the 1.8 aperture, and it's also the Play Memories apps, because I am going to start using that camera with time-lapse. And I discussed this before, that having those Play Memory apps on there is a great feature. You can even do the gradation software in there to get your landscapes looking correct with your inbuilt ND filters for that. So for things like that, it's fantastic. Now remember, someone said to me, yeah, but you can use time-lapse on the version 6. You can, but as soon as the battery's died, it's gone. Now that's a problem because you can't charge up the camera while you've got the intervalometer in there. So, you know, that's a bit of an issue. But I really do like having, like I said, I really do like having that inbuilt ND filter in the actual camera itself. It's one less piece of hardware that I've got to lug around. So that's for me personally. Like I said, I would be tempted if you were traveling and you wanted to go light that you could have 2 of those cameras, one for the longer lens and then one for the 1.8. They are that tiny that you could easily carry 2, but I think that might be why Sony is going to think about this. I don't think the version 5 will drop much in price. I think they're going to be selling these basically together side by side, and people will make a decision whether they want those features or whether they want the long lens. And again, like I said, I'd love that long lens as well for travel. That would also be fantastic. So I just wanted to talk to you about that. And let me know if you agree with that or whether you disagree. But it's interesting. It's an interesting scenario which way Sony have gone with that. But I think both cameras may be worthwhile. All right, so let's carry on. 2650. Next story is the Tamron 28 to 75 lens. There is a lot of tests now coming up. There's quite a few. I thought I had one actually on. No, let me just bring up Sony Alpha rumors for a minute, because I'll just show you this. Because I want to show you there's quite a few good tests now on there. Let me just scroll down to the bottom here. All right, let me go to 2. All right, so I want to talk to you about the Tamron 28 to 75. Hopefully it's just down here, I think. Yeah. All right, so there's quite a number of these tests now out there. And look, who's this person that got a review up there? That's me. There's a number of reviews on now that you can see about how the lens actually performs. And like I said, I'll leave the link down below. A number of people are asking me about this because I use that lens so extensively, and I have taken that back now. And I really did adore using it on the gimbal, to be honest. I'm seriously thinking about getting one once all these issues are fixed for my gimbal work. It'd be great to use in weddings. So the thing is, what I'm recommending to people at the moment, if you have a lens that is showing that problem, to be honest, I think I would return it. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I'm not convinced yet whether this is software or hardware. And that's the thing for me, that I'm not quite sure about how this works. Because to me, and this is the way I'm just thinking, I would think if it was a firmware issue, it would be more, all the cameras would be similar in what's actually happening. But to have to disconnect the actual lens and then put the lens back on makes me feel like it may be a hardware issue with those contacts. And that's what I'd be worried about what's going on here. And this is why I'm saying if you're within that return period and you are seeing an issue with that lens and it's having that focusing problem, it may be better to return it, wait for the issues to be fixed, and then obviously repurchase it as Tamron then say it's actually been fixed. I'm not saying firmware won't be able to fix it, because they may be able to, and it might be a firmware thing. It just seems to me that if it's something where you've got to disconnect the lens and then put that back on. It seems to me more like it's a hardware issue with something like the contacts and stuff. But that's just the way that I'm thinking. Now, like I've said to people before, I didn't fake whatever I showed, and I couldn't have faked it really. That lens for me was outstanding. So clearly there are some versions of that lens and it's amazing. And that was easily as good as any Sony lens I've used with focus and performance. It was amazing. So clearly, if Tamron can sort those problems out, and I'm sure they will, that lens is going to be a no-brainer to buy. I mean, seriously, for the money that lens is, it's incredible. And that makes me think that if you have got an issue with the lens, it might be better to return it. If your lens is fine, well, obviously I'd keep it. And that's the thing that I would be saying to people out there, is to do that it may be better to talk to your camera shop and say, well, look, I have got this issue. Can I return it if the firmware doesn't fix it? If not, it might be better to return it now. So I'd have that open communication with them to make sure that if it doesn't fix it, if that firmware doesn't fix that problem, that you can still return the camera, the lens. But I seriously adored using it. I mean, it was amazing. It was lightweight. It focused fantastic. The colors were outstanding in it. You're going to be able to update the firmware just like you can with other Sony lenses through the camera. So it really is going to be fantastic. So clearly there's two versions of this lens. There's the fantastic version like what I had, and someone's just mentioning, Dustin, I think, that also said he had a good version of the lens as well. It's seriously, my lens was that sharp, it was easily as good as anything I'd use. So like I said, that may be the thing to sort of play around with that. So I am recommending at this stage, Tamron said a couple of weeks ago it was 2 weeks. Now 2 weeks has passed and we still haven't heard. So they may be still, obviously they're looking into the problem. I haven't heard anything about that, but they may be still looking into that problem. But I'm not 100% convinced that a firmware fix is going to be able to fix that. Well, definitely if it's a hardware error, it's not going to be able to fix it. So I would definitely have open communication with your camera shop or supplier and make sure you can take that back if you're outside of that return period. So yeah, you need to think about that. I think if it was me and I had the lens that was like that, to be honest, I think I'd return it and I'd just order a new one when it was all fixed. That's what I'd be recommending for people to do. But anyway, that's up to you guys. We can talk about that in the comment, guys, because I'd love to know. Appreciate a thumbs up, guys, too. If you could give me a thumbs up. We've got nearly 80 watching. All right, so let me go to the next story. What are we on? 32... 40. Next story is this. Let me just quit that. Next story is this, which looks like a really nice little lens, actually. If you are into the 24mm focal length, I'm not really into that focal length at all. I like the 35, but if you are looking for a wider angle lens, it's announced and reviewed now. I think it's going to be released early July, I think. Was when it's going to be released, and it's $400. It's really a good price for that lens. The reviews that I've seen of it seem to be that it's really quite nice, and it focuses well. It's silent, I've heard, and it's really, and it is nice and sharp too. So again, if you're after a really nice lens, this could be a good one that may interest me one day to stick on a gimbal though, because it is 24mm on a gimbal is quite a good focal length. So anyway, that will be announced soon. You can obviously pre-order it now, I think. Yeah, well, you can. Yeah, it's saying there. You can pre-order that lens now if you like. It's tiny. I don't think they show any how small it is. It is tiny. I mean, it's really tiny. But the results, like I said, I've seen from the lens itself look like it really does give a nice result. It's also, you can shoot really close with it, almost like a macro like I could with a Tamron. So that's a great feature too. That would also be something really nice on a gimbal as well, because I did love the way I could move in. That's why I'd love the Tamron or something like that, because if you can get nice and close to flowers, like a bride with their flowers and things like that, get him really tight and shoot something like that you can see there with a hand, that's fantastic. So it seems to be that it's a really versatile lens, and you know, I'm looking forward to seeing full-on reviews of it. But according to the tests that I've seen, it looks terrific. So I just thought I'd share that to show you there's another option again. It just looks like, you know, Sony's lens lineup is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, I mean, how lucky are we now in Sony? You certainly can't say that we're not spoilt with lenses anymore. We just have that many. And for $400, really, it's a bit of a bargain, isn't it, when you think about what you're getting there? And I love shooting primes. So this could be one that one day I put in my kit. I'll just wait and see. There's also, obviously, the Sony version as well, the 28 f2. But this is a bit wider, so I think I prefer this on a gimbal than the 28 f2. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. All right, so what I'm going to do now is open up to questions. So let me just put down here. So fire away with your questions, guys. Just let me put in the time, 35:30. All right, so let me just clear the... Let's go to questions. So let me scroll back and just see where we were. I answered what the best 35 is. Well, really, I like the Sony 35 f1.4, but that's the lens that I liked. Mike said the 35 Samyang, which also is a great lens as well. And obviously now there's also the Sigma too. What else have we got? Ryan said, I got a new zoom lens, 70 to 300. That's nice. A great range on that lens. Melvin said, what's up from New York City? Hi, Melvin. Dominic said, I had some focusing hunting issues with, using Canon lenses on the MC11 in low light. Okay. But only when shooting in portrait orientation. Oh, that's interesting. Landscape was fine and fast. Weird. That is weird. I don't really know why that would be the case, but when I've tested the ones that I have with the MC11, it was fantastic in photography. It struggled in video, though. That was one of the issues with that, Dominic. It certainly struggles in video. If you're going to do video, I would recommend adapted lenses. Dwayne said, that's another thing. Lucky said, I'm very interested in the Samyang 24 2.8, and that's what we just talked about, Lucky. It does look sharp and good for video. Yep, definitely, and fantastic for a gimbal. Be a good vlogging lens as well. Alex said, hello, David. Alex from Mex. You need to invite Kiara more often. Your rating will go up. She was funny yesterday in the chat we had. Oh, she's a scream, honestly. Ultimate Climbing said, love my A3. Shots are amazing. Got mine 2 days after pre-order schedule date. Hundreds are still waiting at my local store. I was very fortunate. Yeah, I know. They're hard to get, and they're going to be hard to get for a time. I think it's easier. I think you can get the camera easy if you buy it with the kit lens. So if you're willing to pay that little bit extra, you might find you can get it if you order it with the kit lens, because it comes as a kit. So you might be able to try that if you're desperately waiting for it. It comes with the, what is it, the 28 to 70 mil or whatever it is, or 75. I can't remember what that size is. Mario saying hi. G'day, Mario. Like said, David, do you use Twitter for questions, answers, or preferred YouTube, even if questions are off topic? Best place if you're trying to ask me questions, and I'm going to show you, because just now that you've mentioned it, is my Facebook site. So let me just come in here and I'll show you the exact site. And this is by far the best place. Where are we? So if you add this site, let me just click over here. This is by far the best place to ask questions. It's the Photography Videography School on Facebook. That's what this is designed for. I've set this page up for you guys to communicate with me and the other members that are basically following me in YouTube. And that's by far the best place that you can join me. You can see people are asking questions all over the place through it. And it really is a good site. So, you know, please make sure you join that site. It by far is the best place to do that. It's by far better really than sending me all personal messages and stuff like that. Because sometimes, because I'm running a business, it gets a bit confusing, and I give that more out to wedding clients and things like that. So it's far better if you want to communicate with me directly to do it through photography or videography school. You can also always ask questions on YouTube too, because I do always answer. I always make sure I answer all the questions on YouTube. But that definitely is the best place to join. The weekly header up here is a competition each week, and I'll put the winner in the header up the top. So again, I'm giving something back to all of you guys. This week's task is actually to give you best sunset image. So we've got a stack of sunset images. If you click in here, that you'll see that will pop up where people are starting to submit all of their best sunset images. So we go through stuff all the time, and it really is a great positive site. I'm not going to allow any bullshit at all. If anyone starts slamming other people's works or getting rude like I've seen on a lot of other sites, I'm just going to ban them and block them. It's a place of positivity, so that's important for me that everyone gets on. And you can also share your Instagram on here. You can share your Facebook pages. You can share your work. You can share your videos that you create. The only thing you can't do is go live. I'm really encouraging you to share everything on this site, so please use it. Let me just switch back to here. So I hope that answers your question, Ryan said, next lens will be the 35 1.4, waiting to see how the Sigma is before I buy the Sony. Yeah, and that might be a good idea, Ryan, is just wait and see how all the lenses compare. If the Sigma is great and that meets your needs, fantastic. You should also try the Samyang as well, or the Tamron, whichever way it is over there for you. You could try that one as well, and then also try the Sony and just see which one you like the best. Dwayne said, can you please talk about lighting in the future? I'm stuck between Neo, EOS, and I'd get the flash. I'd get the 200 or the 600 flash point, Dwayne, definitely. The problem is with anything that's continuous light is power. I don't care what anyone says out there. There's no way those flashes can beat something like a 600 flash point. No way on earth. You're far better off if you're dealing with overpowering the sun and doing things. If that's the way that you want to shoot and working outdoors and not indoors all the time, to be shooting with something like the flash point. You can buy all these beautiful soft boxes for that. Don't get suckered in by all this Neo stuff. I've got two of them, and the Neo Roto lights, and there's no way I would ever use those to replace my flashes. No way on earth. It's a harder light. You have to get that close to your subject. With flashes, you can stand right back if you need to. You can overpower the sun. You've got all of these fantastic modifiers that you can use. To be totally honest, if you're confused about both of them, if you're shooting indoors all the time and that's all you're going to do, you could probably get away with the Neo. If you're going to do general photography like indoors, outdoors, overpower the sun, do other things, get the flash point. Jay said, just got an email from B&H that the 35s are shipping. Oh, that's fantastic. Was that the Sigma one? Jay, just curious. Ryan said, hey Dwayne, switch to the Godox gear this year, and I have the AD200 as well as the AD600. They are fantastic. HSS is amazing out in the sun, and that's exactly right. That's why I wouldn't be going the Neo. Don't get suckered in by what people are showing you out there. Look, it's hard, I know, and I can understand that, but people are always sponsored by people and things like that. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm just going to tell you the way I see it. There's no way I would be, I would be learning flash first, then later on you could have the EOS or whatever to add to your arsenal. But I'd definitely be getting the flash first because it's far more useful. Trevor said, the only lenses I like more than Sigma Art Glass are the Zeiss Milvis Primes. Sigma Glass is astonishingly good, especially considering the price point. Yeah, and that's what I found too, Trev. I thank you so much, Michael. I don't know what that was for, but I'll come back later on. I'll better check because you might have said something. Thank you so much, mate. I really appreciate that. What else have we got? Jolie said, yeah, just got the email 35s shipping. That's fine. Yeah, Sigma Art, as we were saying there, yeah, Sigma Art Glass is fantastic. So, but like I said, compare it. Rent or go to a shop and ask to try out the Samyang, or the Tamron, ask to try the Sigma, and also ask to try the Sony and see which one you like the best. Altrix said, where are we? I've lost it now. Oh, Altric said, not on Canon, had to fine tune it and it still wasn't sharp. Okay, you're talking about the Sigma adapters, were you, Altric? Trevor said, I think after I bought my Sigma 51.4 Art for my Sony a7iii III, it was almost the only lens I used for about a year or so. Yep. Like I said, I used to use Sigma on my Nikon stuff and I loved it. It was razor sharp. Trevor said the gems are the 50 and the 85. Yeah, and I'm dying to try the 105 out and that 135. I can't wait to try those two lenses out. Lucky said too big, and that's right, they may be. And that's the thing. I do like travelling light, but like I said to you, I may be interested in the 105 and the 135. Keep them in my bag and just bring them out occasionally for doing some portraits, just to have that bit of difference. Scott said, got the Sigma 16 1.4. The IQ is great on that lens, Scott. Yes, it's a terrific lens, that Sigma 16 1.4. It's fantastic for low light. Only negative for video is the focus noise. And that can be a problem with a lot of those other lenses. And that's where Sony sometimes can excel. They are so quiet in video. And that's one thing that you have to test. And it can be variable too, where I've found the Sonys always are quiet. That's the reason why I've mostly gone Sony. Scott, if you shoot with the a7 III, is it still at f1.5? I'm not sure what that means. Mario said, hi David, as a pro, do you also suffer from gas? Do you get some of the equipment for the beauty of it or strictly for work needs? No, I only really buy what I need for work now, Mario. I've slowed down. I used to be a lot worse, to be totally honest. I'm now tending to only buy what I need, and then after I've used it or up enough, I'll sell it and then replace it with something new. But I'm trying not to... Gas really doesn't help anyone, really, to be totally honest with you. You should try and avoid it if you can, and just really utilise what you've got. The only reason I would update is if it had something that I didn't have, or it could help me do something. Like, obviously, upgrading from the A7 IIs to the A7 III and the A9 has helped me because the focusing is so good and the video is so good, etc. So upgrading from that has been fantastic. So I got something out of that. So it was beneficial. There's got to be a reason for me as a business that I'll upgrade for a need. If I haven't got the need, I won't upgrade. And that's why I'm still shooting with what I've got, like the Batis and the, the 55 and lenses like that. Like, they're just perfect for what I shoot. And I don't need to go to the G Master versions of those lenses because I really don't think that they would change really the look or the way that I shoot. Probably may even slow me down. Mike said, my 50 Art with the MC11 focus is like native. Okay, thanks, Mike, for telling me that. So how can the E-mount version be better? Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Trevor said, weak link, it's got like 9 rivets in it. I'm not sure what that means. Scott said, 2.1, 24mm on full frame. I'm not sure what that means either. Trevor said, I've never had an issue with the MC11. Yeah, most people don't, but it's interesting. Some obviously do. Michael said, David, at the trade shows, I've been able to use them all, but the 20mm 1.4 from Sigma. What did you think about them, Michael? Let me know in the comments down here what you think about them. I'd love to know what you thought about those lenses. How was the focus? Let us know about the focus too. What else have we got? Trevor said, I'll only use truly geared lenses for focusing for video and virtually never use AF for video. Okay, so you use manual focus, do you? The Sigma focusing rings are large, easy to grip, and are very well dampened. Yeah, and that, like I said, if you're shooting video and you love manual focusing, definitely the Sigma is the way to go. I mean, that's definite because they are beautiful to manual focus. You can rack focus and everything on those, and they really are fantastic. So yes, I agree with you there. And also, if you use follow focus systems, like if you do stick follow focus systems on your lenses, and they have little markers that come on the outside of the lens. So if you're looking here, they'll have a device that sits on the lens, and you can set 2 points, and then you can just rack focus between those 2 points. You can only do that if it hasn't got fly-by-wire, because these lenses won't work, because depending on how fast you move the lens, it changes that focus, so they don't work with these follow focus systems. Whereas if you have manual they're not fly-by-wire focus systems like the Sigma. You can do that all the time. So yeah, it's much better. Jay is saying, I think it's J-Ro, says, love your work from Massachusetts. Thanks so much, J-Ro. Ken said, I finally got my Tamron 28-75 and really love it. Well, that's great, Ken. You've obviously got a good one, so you're on a winner. Like I said, if you get a good version of that lens, they're fantastic. Scott said, never, I want to get a full-frame body next year and looking at the Batis 18. Yeah, the Batis 18 2.8 is beautiful. That is a stunning lens. Mario said about the RX100VI, I had the 1, 2, and the 3 or 4, whatever, I can never pronounce these numbers. They were always replaced with my phone, and I really dislike taking pictures with my phone. In my humble opinion, cannot justify the RX100 over a phone. Okay, well, that's interesting, Mario. Well, I personally have found for me, I've never been really happy, particularly with the low light of any of my phones. I've got the iPhone 10, which is as good as you can get. There's no way that will take photos like I did the other day at my granddaughter's party, low light. I tried because my wife used it, and the photos look terrible. Whereas I got really nice photos out of the RX100. So, you know, for me personally, I do have a place for that, and I really do like that camera. But like I said, everyone's different. Like you said, a bit too pricey for me. $1,200. I would buy one if it was under $1,000. Yeah, they're not cheap at all. David, they do make an external ND for the RX100V1, but it's not as convenient. Yeah, and that's the thing, Michael. It's just an extra thing that you've got to use and you know, put on, and it's, yeah. I just want to travel light, and that'd be something I'd lose, no doubt, because it's that small. I love it being inbuilt, and if I forget it, which I would, that's an issue. You know, you may find often that you go out and you're not carrying that ND with you, and that could be a real problem because the time you need it, you haven't got it. Whereas I'll have that every time I need it with that camera. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. I really like the RX100V so far. I also have a week to take it back. Yeah, I'm the same, Ryan. I'm not going to take it back. I'm going to keep it. But they're both great cameras. I'm not bagging that other camera. The 6 is fantastic. It's just they're totally different cameras. They really, that new one shouldn't have been put as an upgrade, I don't think. They can almost work side by side. Because I love the 1.8. That, like I said to you, that 1.8 for me is really important because I really do like using them, like I said, indoors and at nighttime and things like that. And not having the 1.8 is going to be an issue, I'm telling you. The images will be noisy. So, you know, I mean, it's only a very tiny sensor. So, you know, it's definitely going to show noise. Where were we up to? What else have we got? Carl said, Dustin Abbott just completed a very comprehensive test of the Tamron 28-75. Yeah, I saw that. But Michael said, yeah, Dustin really didn't go into the issues of the Tamron, but he did say it's a great lens IQ-wise, yeah. He probably didn't experience any issues, so he probably has a good lens like I had. Casper said, what's up? G-Master all the way, baby. Sony, Sony, Sony. I'm hoping these new lenses that come out, this is why I want Tamron to succeed, because I'm really hoping that thing sells like absolute hotcakes, and then Sony have to sort of bring their lens pricing down. I really do. If you look, and they are still a little bit expensive, like if you look at the 70-200, the Canon version is about $1,000 cheaper. So Sony could have some work to do lowering their prices somewhat. I really wish that they would be, say, competitive with what Canon have just announced with their new 70-200. Big difference in pricing, so I really would like them to do that. What else have we got? Mario said, we have to be realistic. At some point, Sony has to bring a new mount to overcome the deficiency of the E-mount regarding its small diameter and a large flange focal distance. Yeah, I'm not sure whether they will, Mario. I really don't know. You're saying there's a second thing. It makes a problematic design to design fast and wide full frame lenses. The more we invest in FE E-mount lenses, the harder it will be to upgrade when Sony finally makes the move. I noticed on Sony rumors, let me just bring this up. They did show a new mount. I noticed that was showed. Let me just find it for you, and I'll show you the exact thing. Where was it? Because it was interesting, I thought, oh, that's interesting. But there's rumors with that mount that it may be for a medium format camera. Let me just see if I can find it. I probably won't be able to find it now. Oh, there we go. All right, so it's there. This is the new one that there's a new patent that's just come out that is saying that Sony have disclosed a new or updated mount for mirrorless systems. So it's basically saying that it's with 8 pins. The E-mount has 10. I don't know if this is a patent for an updated E-mount with 8 pins or for a completely new mount, medium format potentially. So there is a potential there that yes, that they could be thinking about doing something for medium format or something. I mean, I don't really have an issue with the mount at all. I tend to like the fact that everything is so small, and it doesn't bother me at all. But you may have other things that you'd like to say, Mario. You're saying that they can't put a 1.2 lens on there or something. I mean, yeah, I can understand what you're saying, but I don't really know if it's a problem. It's certainly not a problem for me. I think it's a great lens, and I'm not having any issues with mine. Okay, that's the Tamron, is it? Well, that's good. Okay. Scott said, I've been using the Sigma 16 and 24 full frame equivalent for outdoor videos, and it's a great lens, but I'm missing my 10 to 18. Yeah, I love the 10 to 18. I use that all the time on gimbals and stuff. Michael said that 2.8 looks great for street work. Yeah, it does if you like that really wide angle look, Michael. Where were we up to? It jumped. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Voigtlander does make a 41.2. That's why I'm saying I don't think it's an issue with that lens mount. I really don't. They just have to design the lens right. Ray said, do you believe Sony or Zeiss will make faster lenses as an alternative to GM or Sigma lenses? Well, they may make... Well, I think they're probably going to compete. There's no reason, I think, why they couldn't make a 1.2 lens. They certainly now, well, if you look at, they make the 105 f1.4. Now, I don't know why you'd want anything faster than what that lens is. 105 at f1.4 is nuts. I mean, that is ridiculous. Even 85 at 1.4 is really shallow. Ken said, I had focus issues with the Tamron 28 to 75, but the workaround was to turn off the camera. Yeah, I don't like that workaround at all. Stacey said, hi Stacey, I finally got to make a live show. Good to see you on here. Philip said, how are the Sigma art lenses for video? Well, I think they're fantastic. They should be just as good as what Sony are. Stacey said, received my Tamron 28 to 75 last Friday and I've used it on 3 shoots. I'm so impressed. I have not seen any focus issues at all. That's great, Stacey. So you've probably got a good lens like I had. If you have a good lens, it is fantastic. It really is fantastic. J-Ro said, you got me into photography. I'm looking to get the Sony a7 III as my first camera with a Tamron lens. Please do more videos of editing with Adobe software. Yeah, I will do that when time permits. Thank you so much for the donation, Michael. Really appreciate that. Jay said, yes, the 35s are shipping. Okay, so that's really good news. So they are shipping now, the Sigmas. So if you did want one, you can order one. Hi, David. Where can I get Flashpoint 600 in Australia? Should I get the non-TTL or TTL? Flashpoint, all you have to do is search Australia, and there's stacks of places, Tan. They're all over the place. If you search for Flashpoint 600 Australia, you'll get shops all over the place. I'd buy the TTL version though, definitely. It's much better, and then you can shoot to manual. If you see how I shoot, that's the way I'm always going. TTL, then switch to manual. But TTL can be good if you're running and gunning and you haven't got time to sort of move things. So I'd definitely buy the TTL version. But just Google Flashpoint 600 Australia. What else have we got? The Neo is trash. I don't know if it's trash, Altric. It's still a good light, but I don't think you can compare the Neo to Flash's systems. Look, they'll get there eventually, but it's not there yet. And I wouldn't be paying that sort of money for like the EOS when you can buy a fantastic Flash system for the same money. Mario, the Canon f1.2 works on the A7S also with image stabilization. Like I said, cheers, David. Facebook it is. Yep, join us there, mate. Fantastic site building up. Great advice on the gas question. Thanks, no worries. Gene said, David, I was currently doing some quick indoor test shots with the Tamron 28-75. No issues so far. Yeah, and you might have another good one, Gene. So if that's the case, you've definitely got a keeper. What's gas and how do you catch it? You should know, Michael. Michael cracks me up. Michael grabs everything that's out there. He makes me laugh. Heath said, thank you again for your advice. Cheers. Moser Aircross, here I come. You're going to love that Aircross. That is a great gimbal. Right over here. The beauty is, the funny thing is, I tried the, some of these bigger gimbals, and I've got a few. I've got Came TV gimbals and others. I tried to put my RX100 on it, and it was like this. It was going brrr, it was like vibrating like bloody crazy. It was terrible. I put it on this, and it worked instantly, and it's fantastic. Like, it works brilliant. Like honestly. I know a lot of people talk about Crane and all these other things that are out there, but I can only talk to you about from my experience. That gimbal is unbelievable. I can put really quite heavy stuff on there, and I can also put something like the RX100, and it is rock solid because it auto-calibrates. You just press the button on the gimbal itself, and then it sort of wobbles like that, and then it auto-calibrates itself, and it's rock solid. I love the remote control. The app is great in it. It's very light. I just love it. It's the best gimbal I've ever had. It really is, and it's super small. Like, I just love it, and the motors are really quite powerful. If you're going to put something bigger, then you'd need to get the Moser Air. But honestly, the Aircross is fantastic. I'm not bagging the other gimbals. I mean, Came has fantastic gimbals as well. All the other ones out there are great too. It's just I love that, and I'm not paid for that. I bought that out of my own money, and I adore it. I really love using that gimbal. Crane, I mean, also make fantastic gimbals as well. It just depends on what you like. I know Michael has a couple of Crane, and he loves the Cranes as well. What else have we got? Mario said, yes, my comment is based on Andrew's rumour on SAR. Very interesting, and it appears to be much bigger. You're talking about that new mount, Mario. I think the diameter is fine. 1.2 lenses have kind of maybe anyway. Race said, the only problem with 1.2 lens is lack of speed, and heavy for a body makes no sense. They would be very, very heavy. And like I said, 1.2 is getting very, very shallow. Now, you can do it. I'm happy with 1.8. And 1.4, like I said, in the 35, I love. I don't know whether I buy a 1.2 lens, to be honest. I'm really happy with that, the 1.4 and the 1.8. Shaku said, what is a good prime lens for the a7 III between 20 and 35? What do you mean out of those two? Well, I'd get the 35 if that was me. I love the 35 focal length, but it just depends on what focal length you like to use. That Rocky on 24 seems like it's a really good value that I just showed before. Also, you have the Sony 28, remember, as well, f2, which is a good lens as well. Mike said, why wouldn't a 1.2 lens on the current E-mount? I think it will. Yeah, I think there's no reason why it shouldn't work. Jeff said, check out the new Noctius 75mm 0.95. Mario said, I'm sorry, I'm not trolling about Sony. I like the way Sony is going. There are no issues with the current E-mount. Just the physics makes it harder, but it's not impossible. Yeah, it's not, Mario. There's no reason why you could do it easily. It's just they have to design the lens to suit it. Because you can use 1.2 lenses on there. You can use the Canon 1.2 with the MC11 adapter. Delta Dave said, Flashpoint is rebadged Godox. Yeah, it is. Oh, yeah, that's Godox. Yeah, you might have to use Godox here. I forgot about that. And thank you, Dave, it is. Yeah, you may have to use Godox here if you're searching for that in Australia. What else have we got? Mario said, with a wider mount diameter and a shorter flange focal distance, Sony and others could make even more interesting lenses, probably smaller also. Would love Sony to do that. Shaku said, you could be in denial about gas. Moving from the A9 to the A7 III is not an upgrade. That was A9 that I showed you, that image there. Was the A9. So I shot that with the A9 yesterday. I'm still using it. And trust me, if I'm going to weddings, my main camera is the A9. And I'm telling you, the A9 still for me is the better camera. So I still am using the A9 as my number one camera. And if we're in weddings, the A7 III is my backup camera. I'm usually using both, to be honest. One will have the 85 on it, and one will have the 35, and I'm just switching between both cameras. So in no way am I not using my A9. I definitely am, and that was shot with A9. You can see up the top there, if you look. See? A9. All right. At what mode do you use? What do you mean by what mode, William? Just curious what you mean by that. Tonks Vision said, how often do you use zoom like the 2470? Never. I've got a 24-7 f4. I never use it. Or 2875 Tamron. Do you use it mostly for weddings and events? No, because I haven't got that. I had to take the 2875 back. That was lent to me by Tamron. So I had to take that back. Tox. The thing is, for me, I like shooting primes. I do use the 70-200 f4 only when I need the compression. I'll grab that lens out, or if I need the reach, I'll grab that out. But I'm shooting all the events really with the 35 and the 85. I'll also use the 16-35 f4 if I need to go wide. If I need to go wider than that, I'll use the 10-18. And if I need to go longer, I'll use a 70-200 f4. I don't have any GM lenses. I'm tempted to buy the 28-75 to use on the gimbal that I have, because it was such a good focal length to use on the gimbal, and then I could zoom in and out on the gimbal, and it's only 550 grams, so I'm definitely tempted to get that Tamron for that. Plus, I think that would be a nice travel lens too. Mario said, yes, please, let's move to gas. No more mount cameras. Sorry. So any more last questions before we finish? Because it's just about coffee time for me. I will put up another video tomorrow. I'll actually put up the video that I put of the workshop that I did. I actually recorded it with me training the people there. So I'll put up the first one of those videos probably tomorrow. And then I still have to put up the studio ones that I've recorded recently of Kiara too. They'll all be coming up soon as well. Ryan said, laugh so hard at your great review of all the problems with the A7iii. That wasn't me, Ryan. That was the happy photographer. You must be getting confused. That wasn't me. Any last questions, guys? Otherwise, please leave your questions down below. If you've got any other questions from today or any other questions, I'll answer it. Don't forget to join the Facebook group. I'll leave the link for that below, the Photography and Videography School. And obviously leave questions down below if you want me to answer them for you as well, because I do always make sure that I answer every question that we get. All right, guys, I think that'll be just about it for today. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going to watch the World Cup tonight. Can't wait. I'm not sure who's playing tonight, but I'm going to watch it anyway. I'm looking forward to it. Go Aussies. Aussie, oi, oi, oi. We're probably going to get thrashed, but I'm hoping that they do well. Last couple of questions. I have the FE 24-105 f4. That's a lovely lens. Suggestions for a prime lens? Well, if I only had to buy one prime lens, I'll get the 35. But that would be me, Eddie. So that's what I'd be getting if I could only afford one lens. I'd get the 35 1.4. When are we getting the Happy Photographer back? Maybe appearing one day. I just have to wait and see if the right moment comes by. All right, guys. Catch you all. Have a great weekend. It's coffee time in my New York accent. Coffee. Bye for now.